What's going on, guys? It's Bromley, and today I'm gonna carry on with some questions from Patreon. This one comes from Patreon member Thomas Doan, and he's asking about the usefulness of education in the field, like how much experience is needed, classes, and so on. I did do a video sometime back about how useful I thought a degree was, but I'll get a little more into this because so much of what we talk about in this field is based off academic stuff. I mean, you have to have a working knowledge of how the human body works. You have to have a way to conceptualize some concepts that might be difficult to grasp, or especially difficult to hold along with all of the other variables you have to consider at the same time. So I can see how a lot of people think that you are best suited with a formal academic approach. So the conclusion I came to, or what the opinion that I espoused last time around when I talked about a degree, is that degrees in this field are extraordinarily overblown. If you talk to some of the greats, not just as far as lifters, but coaches, you find a lot of people that learned basically by getting in the field, learned through practice, through trial and error, learned by listening to the other really good lifters and coaches. One of the things that was validating for me was hearing Ed Cohen talk about how, when he was asked, how'd you get good? He said, I just read the magazines. You might be inclined to turn your nose up at them, and I can see why, but the magazines, the bodybuilding rags, even the kind of watered down men's health or men's fitness stuff, the articles are written by the guys with the letters after their names. It's all of the guys with the degrees that are writing these concepts down in a way that's more digestible for the layperson, and that is specifically relevant to what you're trying to do. Where if you go to college or you go to a formal academic institution, these concepts are a lot more vague. They're not as often specified with how they would be specifically used with, let's say, the volleyball players versus the Olympic lifters versus the track athletes or whatever, and the devil's in the details. So that is why you get so much more out of jumping into the field, because you can pick up the academic stuff as you go. And when you do, it's going to be in the context of specifically how you apply it. Whereas starting with the vague backdrop, it's not that having that information is bad, but it's that they are very handicapped with their ability to give it to you in a way that's going to be relevant towards one specific outcome. So I am very cynical when it comes to formal academic institutions in this field specifically. I think they're behind the curve. I think you don't need much more than a couple of introductory anatomy classes, and then maybe skimming through a strength and conditioning textbook a few times. But even a couple of years reading through Flex, muscular development, men's health, muscle and fitness, all of that stuff, that was where a lot of the information I got early on came from. And I'm telling you, by the time I entered into the kinesiology program, I really didn't come across any new information. I mean, Dave Tate talked about how, he has a degree in exercise science, and Jim Wendler asked if he thought it helped him for powerlifting. He said, practically, not really. That you learn so much specific stuff by doing it that you don't even touch in the academic component. But the academic component can be pretty much picked up as you go. So that's my take on that. Now, as far as usefulness, as far as just general experience that you might not get otherwise, I think there is some usefulness to some general classes, but I'm not sure that it's worth going and getting a degree. And it really is going to be determined by how far away you are from where you need to be. Like if you're getting into this field and you just picked it up from scratch and you're not brushed up on anything, you really have no anatomy background, you really just haven't had any foot in the door when it comes to getting this stuff down. If you really are starting from square one, then sure, any class you take, any bit of education is going to get you closer to where you need to be. But I mean, once again, if you do have a passion for it, I mean, I really do recommend finding a few good publications and running through back issues. And then by the time you start to see the same information repeated, because it's not like there's been enough new discoveries that every magazine since the 1950s has been original. Like eventually they cycle through the same info. So by the time you get to a year or two worth of content, you start to see the same stuff repeated, you're going to have a pretty good handle on a lot of the foundational stuff. And then if you're pairing that with some more formal stuff in terms of textbooks, or some more heady stuff as far as writings from some of the best coaches, then you're going to start to really connect these dots in a way that's pretty meaningful. Classes, certifications, almost certainly not. I mean, that's such a low-hanging fruit. Certifications are pretty much garbage, and they charge so much for the information, and it's not like proprietary. It's not like you have to go through certification courses to get that info. It's literally everywhere. So if you do have a passion, you're going to find yourself attracted to and spending time on sources that perpetuate this type of information. And it's just a matter of time. It's just, a few months of paying attention and you'll start to connect these dots. So experience is really where it's at. And there's no substitute for experience. There really isn't. So you want to find out who the best performers are as far as what you specifically want to do. If it's general strength training, if it's a niche like Olympic lifting, powerlifting, strongman, bodybuilding, some other obscure strength sport, and you want to find the people that represent what you want to look like or how you want to train or how you want to train other people, and find the best performers in that field. That doesn't mean the most popular. That doesn't mean the most subs. That means the people that have either the biggest resume of success or the people that have put out the most content or the people that have the best testimonials as far as having trained people who are stellar in the field. That's really what it comes down to. But besides that, I would not specifically recommend anybody actually go to school for this. Information these days is just too easy to come by. And when you get it from the right source, it's going to actually fit with how you're trying to apply it. And that connection between this huge blanket backdrop of information and actually plugging it in the way you need it to work in a specific application, that is extremely valuable. I mean, I can't really undersell how important that is as far as saving you time and headaches with trying to bridge that gap, because it can be a pretty big gap. So that's my take on that. You should all be studying. To say I turn my nose up at education, I'm talking about formal institutions. You should all be studying. You should all be watching videos. You should all be reading magazines. You should all be looking through old publications, old books, things that give you different ways of looking at the same thing. And over time, you're just going to develop a reservoir of information, and it's going to make everything click. So that's how you want to approach it. So that's my take on that. Thanks for watching, guys. Leave any questions in the comments and I'll get to them as soon as possible. Till next time, this is Bromley. I'll see you.